In today's episode, I'll be giving my review and reaction to the first season of Ironheart, released on Disney Plus a short time ago. We'll dive into what I thought about the season as a whole, the future of it potentially, and then we'll go episode by episode, get my thoughts and reactions as things have happened, and pick a favorite and least favorite character of each episode. So let's dive right into Ironheart Season 1. Do something, man. People are questioning you. Shut up. Shut up. Okay, yep, do that. Sure, guys. Stupid and dumb. Just an idiot. Get your shit together, son. Fuck it. I loved it. Welcome to the dub cast. Coming into Ironheart, I had somewhat low expectations. This show unfortunately has been review bombed by people who are upset that the main character of the show is black, racist people. So I was a little confused on why that was happening before watching the show. Obviously, I think Tony Stark is a very protected character through the eyes of many casual fans in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, he's the perfect one. No one should ever be Iron Man again. But in reality, if Tony Stark was making an Iron Man suit, like, at least a couple people had to try it. I mean, we saw in Iron Man 1, Stain tries to make it, which, that'll pop up in this season again, but I feel like everyone would be making Iron Man suits. I think this series makes sense, and, a lot of y'all miss Tony Stark in the old days of Endgame and Avengers Infinity War. We got an Iron Woman back. Her name's Ironheart. So I thought this show was... Overall, I thought this show was solid. Like, I thought it could have been a lot worse, especially with some of the unfortunately female-led Marvel shows. They've fallen pretty flat. She-Hulk was a terrible existence, or terrible show. Echo I thought was okay, but nothing special. I'm trying to think if there are any more. I mean, WandaVision was pretty good. What else was there? I didn't watch the Miss Marvel stuff, so I don't know. It felt like, they actually tried with the show, though, and I know they've been kind of slowing down their projects. By the way, no promotion for the show. You have a new Iron Man and Iron Woman, and it's like, we're not going to promote this until it comes out. And then the release schedule, 3 episodes the first week and then 3 episodes the next week. I just watched them all after the second batch dropped, but I don't understand that. I don't know. I think streaming services are still trying to figure out how they best want to drop their episodes. Like, you have Stranger Things dropping like 4, then 2, then, or 4, then 3, then 1 or something. I forget what they're doing, but it's like, just give us all the episodes at once or do weekly. Like, we don't need this 3 and 3. Like, I don't understand the philosophy of the 3 and 3, to be honest. I know, maybe they just were like, let's wrap up phase 5 or whatever, because this is, or phase 6, because I know this is the end of one of the phases of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Fuck. But overall, I enjoyed the show, man. You have a villain. It felt like a classic 2022 Marvel show where you have, a somewhat likable main character. Obviously, we don't have as much of an affinity towards Riri because she's just being introduced to us now in comparison to like a Wanda or a Captain America or Falcon and Winter Soldier, those types of shows that we already know the character, and then we're like, oh, now we'll go watch a show about it. We knew nothing about Ironheart coming into this, so I thought this was a very good introduction to her as a person. And also, maybe she's not, after watching the end, actually, we'll get to that, but maybe she's not the best person. Maybe she's immature and, needs to work on her own stuff before she is able to join the big stuff. But I really enjoyed the show. I thought the villain also was pretty good, where you have like this criminal syndicate, the Hood, you can see it slowly corrupt him, and there's also that bigger power, which seems to be a part of the other shows where it's like you have one big bad, but then there's also another big bad actually controlling them. And we finally met Mephisto, man. We finally know who Mephisto is after all this fucking TikTok conspiracy theories and all that stuff. I thought, we maybe could have used some more fight scenes where we don't really see Ironheart in the suit doing too much, action and fighting people and using the suit. We do see it from time to time, but I would really like to see, some battle scenes with Ironheart in them. And, I think this season takes on a story of missing, like, your best friend, because Riri misses Natalie, and then she accidentally creates her as an AI, and it's like, what are the ethics of that, having an AI as your best friend slash, guidance for your suit. The Jervis to Tony Stark's Iron Man is this girl who was tragically killed, and Riri obviously misses her every day, and you see different reactions, like the mother's reaction, then you see Xavier's reaction. So I thought there was actually a lot of intricate themes going on here, and you actually I stayed pretty close attention to this one. I thought this was a very good show. Well, not very good. I thought it was a good show. Um, some of it was a little bit so, but we can talk about it. But I thought this was a decent show. You have good characters. You have Natalie, you have Xavier, who's like a side character, but you have the witch and magic stuff gets added in at the end, and then Mephisto, the Hood. I liked everyone in the Hood's gang. Slug, Ghost. Those people were all intricate characters. Joe slash Ezekiel was awesome as well. So I thought this was a very well done show for what it was. Not a lot of promotion done. Seemed like Marvel kind of just kicked the can on this one and said, we have to release it. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching this one through. Will there be a season 2? Maybe. I don't know if Riri Williams is supposed to be in the big Avengers movie. I'm sure she will be at some point, but I'm not sure if that's quite ready yet because there's like the Kid Avengers as well. But I'd love to see Riri Williams. I thought this actress did a great job with the role. She was very, you could feel empathetic towards her. You could be mad at her. Like, she was a very good main character in my opinion. So I'm excited for Ironheart moving forward in this Marvel Cinematic Universe. We need more compelling characters with like good backstories. And I thought Ironheart season 1 was a overall pretty good season. I would give it like a 7 out of 10, 8 or 7.5 out of 10. Like, I thought it was a good watch. So yeah, with that being said, let's dive into the episodes, starting with episode 1. Episode 1 of Ironheart is titled Take Me Home. So we start this episode out with our introduction to our main character, Riri Williams. She's this crazy, smart MIT student who seemingly is just insane and everything. Is very smart, making these suits and stuff and, doing these projects all around. We see right off the bat, though, she is a little bit of a troublemaker, and she did have apparently a grant to start building stuff, but she still needs more money in order to get what she wants. She says right off the rip, this doesn't come up a lot throughout the season, but she's chasing the legacy of Tony Stark after studying abroad in Wakanda, which is funny to think about. I went abroad when I was in college. Thinking about going abroad to Wakanda to study is funny. I think she actually met Shuri at some point, too. They might mention that throughout the series, but I thought that was a little bit funny one-liner in there. And we right away off the bat, she's in the principal's office essentially, or the dean's office. She sold her papers to other students, gets called a bad egg, looks like she's going to possibly be expelled, and yep, she's going to be expelled by these 2 professors and deans or whatever that are not very happy with her. And so what does she do? She takes the Iron Man suit that she's built and dips out of the school and flies back to Chicago in it. Crazy work right off the bat, right? We have this Riri character. So I was pretty interested in Riri after this introduction. I thought they did a good job introducing her, explaining her motivations and stuff. So I thought this was a good introduction to the series. Meanwhile, we cut to a crew trying to rob somewhere when a man named Stewart, played by Eric Andre, which is hilarious to see Eric Andre in the MCU, he messes up the heist, and yeah, everything's gone a little bit wrong, but they report back to a man named the Hood, and we see that he has a hood. We find out about Riri. She lost her stepdad and sister in a tragic shooting accident. This seemingly happened in one night. So yeah, at the beginning of the story, we don't really know much about what happened in this accident. Later on, we'll learn that there was kind of a drive-by shooting, kind of seemed random, where Natalie and her stepdad unfortunately do pass away. However, with the gang we're back with now, we meet John, who is the brother of the Hood, which I don't know if that was evident early on, but he is the brother. It's not eventually, he's always the brother. John pays for Riri's gear, so Riri, flew back home in the Iron Man suit. Not everything went well, where it basically crashed and burned because it was a prototype, and so she needs to get new gear to replenish the suit, rebuild it. But John is here to buy all of her gear and gives her a potential setup if she's interested to meet with the Hood and John to be on the team, essentially. And he says, like, if you're ever interested, come to this address. And she's like, oh, no, I'm not desperate enough to do that, but we'll see. So, of course, she goes right to the interview, and she is going up in an elevator. And in order to make the team, she has to break out of a gassed up elevator where they leave like a gas bomb in it and just smoke up the place, and she's got to get out, which, you really going to put her on the team after this? I don't know. Felt very odd, but that's the way she does it. So she's able to break out by using somewhat unconventional methods where even the members of the team are impressed. And once she gets up there, she's all pissed off, like, why the fuck did you make me do that? That's not really fair. I shouldn't have to do all this stuff to just to get be on the team. I'm out of here. I don't want to be a part of this. But then after she sees the money and urgency of this crew, she's like, you know what? I'll join in. And Parker, aka the Hood, throughout this whole season is basically just like, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but you should do it. Like, if he does that a lot of times. So he just did that here with Riri. She falls for it, which is our first indication of maybe the decisions Riri will make at the end of this series. But moving on, we have a flashback to the night that Natalie and Riri's dad passed away. Once Natalie is listening to the mixtape that this man named Xavier, who Xavier is one of her closest friends, Xavier brought a mixtape that had Natalie's voice in it, so this brought Riri back to the night that had happened. And yeah, it looks like they got shot up, which is crazy. Just chilling in a car garage, and they get shot up by a drive-by. It's pretty fucked up, man. Meanwhile, the Hood has some mysterious shit going on with him getting tattooed and a red hood behind a safe locked door. So I never really understood the tattoo stuff where we see John tattooing him. He's like, I don't want to keep doing this to you, man. I think they're just maybe doing the tattoos over those little marks that get on him after he wears the hood. So yeah, John's helping him out with that, making it look natural. And then finally, Natalie reappears as a vision, as what we would know to be an AI, like a Jarvis, but actually can like stand and walk and talk as she passes out because she fell asleep with the little things in her mind. So the mind thing made an AI of Natalie. So I guess that's where we're at. I mean, I did like this device as a plot, like theme and everything as well. I mean, I kind of mentioned this in the overall review, but I did enjoy the Natalie aspect of this series. So that's where we leave off episode 1. My favorite from this character was Riri. I thought she had really good charisma in this episode. I liked her. I liked the start of her story. Least favorite is going to Xavier. He kept talking about Natalie and then included her on the mixtape without warning Riri that Natalie would be on the mixtape. I guess they are brother and sister, so you can kind of expect that to come, but I don't know. I thought that was a little bit odd from Xavier. So that's where we'll wrap up episode 1. Episode 2 is titled, Will the Real Natalie Please Stand Up? So we came in on this episode from the last episode with the cliffhanger of Natalie being created as an AI. So right off the jump, Riri's trying to deal with the Natalie AI, but leaves her behind because she has to go meet the Hood and the team, John and all them. So unfortunately, she's replacing Stewart, which, you see Eric Andre in the MCU, you're like, no way this dude's staying on for a whole 6 episodes. Yeah, he's in like 1 or 2 more. So she's replacing Stewart as they plan on breaking into a new tunnel system, which is a super dope tunnel system where you just like have your car on a platform and just like drives for you. It seemed awesome. MCU is way ahead of civilization, but also it's like not environmentally friendly, so I'm not sure if I fuck with that. Anyways, Natalie finds this guy. She's been doing research. The AI has been doing research on where all these tech items are that Riri may need. And there's this one guy that has this somewhat normal suburban life named Joe. Lets this neighbor's dog shit on his yard and does nothing about it, which is like the craziest shit ever, where the neighbor's like, yeah, he basically has to shit on your lawn or else like there's nowhere else for him to go. Stand up for yourself, Joe. Goddamn. But so Riri goes to see Joe. Joe doesn't want to admit it at first about what he's up to, but after she threatens taking him to prison over all of his black market dealings, all of his black market purchases that he has somewhere, he takes her out on a drive to his collection of all these parts, and he mentions getting blackmailed twice in a day, where I forget where the first one was from, but maybe it was both Riri, but yeah, Riri's blackmailing him to get out of there. So Natalie is able to escape out of the computer, being that she's a live AI with like seemingly a personality. She doesn't want to just sit on the computer all day. And so she breaks out and gets onto one of Riri's mom's paintings. So Riri's mom is like using some sort of tablet to enhance or do her paintings. So once Natalie gets out of the computer, she jumps onto there so Natalie's mom can see her as well. And then, yeah, they're reconciled a little bit. It's obviously very weird to see someone you think is dead as an AI, but Riri's mom takes it okay, which we'll have another character later on who does not take it so okay. Meanwhile, Riri is suiting up and the operation begins because she got the parts from Joe in order to get the suit. So the operation begins with the Blood Twins and Hood's brother beating up a bunch of people. So I really actually did enjoy these scenes of these blood twins. Like that was those were the actual strong combat scenes in my opinion, where they just walk into a building and just fuck people up. So I did like those fight scenes, and you have John here as well. Okay, I guess he's just another one of them beating up people, and then so Natalie appears in the suit and is able to help out Riri in this operation. Slug is a technical hacker from Wakanda, exiled from Wakanda, and is just working for this crew now. And she has just 2.5 seconds to switch over a security system drive. Like she's just a basic hacker, but well, I don't even know if she's a she, but Slug has 2.5 seconds to do this after Riri drops the drive down the tunnel system. And Hood appears in the CEO's car, who's driving around in the tunnel system, and asks her for a lot of things within the company. So that's sort of the way the Hood does things, where they just do these raids, do these robberies, and then they go to the main person leading the operation and just ask them for their whole company, basically, or a big part of their company. Thought that was a little bit odd on the way they did that, but yeah, Hood is going to ask for those things from the woman CEO of this underground tunnel system and get them because he has her at gunpoint. Blah blah blah. So Riri, after pulling off this crazy heist and doing the drive and shutting down the security system, comes out of the tunnel systems through a manhole, and a guard stops her immediately, and also Natalie outside of the tunnel. But who's there to save the day? It's Parker in the Hood, able to shoot the guard before he shoots Riri. Very, I think this scene was trying to be like very political a little bit because you have the black people raising their hands, and I appreciate that. So I thought that was a good representation of that. Maybe I'm just overstepping on that one, but it was like she's trying to put her hands up, and they're like, "No, I'm gonna shoot you." But Hood is able to shoot him as well, so no damage done to Riri, luckily. And then Natalie senses a bad energy off Parker and argues with Riri over it. So Natalie's actually in the right about this one. Something's going on with that Parker character, and we see the scar things that keep going over his face. Like, I don't like that. So yeah, Natalie actually is right. Riri's in denial. Riri, after this operation, heads home and chills and goes to a Saba concert on with Xavier. So I thought this was awesome. I love Saba's music, and that was super cool to see him performing for a couple minutes. I didn't know the song that he was doing, but I thought that was an amazing cameo from Saba. And then Xavier talks about wanting to talk to Natalie, which will, kick the can down the line for that one. Parker got shit coursing through his back and wants privacy, so we slowly see this evolution of stuff where we saw John tattooing his back last episode. Now this episode there's even more stuff on his back, so he's like, get out of my room, I just want to be private. He's got mad fucking magic going through his body. And then Joe at the end of the episode sees dog poop in his yard, steps in it, or he doesn't see it, he steps in it, and then finally he's going to stand up for himself. That's one of the things Riri told him, stand up for yourself, kid. So he goes and cuts the neighbor's flowers. I don't know if that's the thing I would do, but if she cares about the flowers, I guess that's a good way to get back at her. So yeah, that's episode 2. My favorite from this episode, once again, is going to Riri. I thought her dynamic with Joe was super fun this episode, and her character is pretty charismatic once again. Least favorite, I'm giving to Hood. Something sus going on with him. Shot a cop, although he did save Riri, so not the worst thing in the world. But that's where we'll wrap up episode 2. Episode 3 is titled "We in Danger, Girl." So in this episode, we have Clown cracking the safe and wearing the hood. So this is a big no-no in this sort of, I don't know what to call them, a crew of people who are looking to heist. You do not touch the hood, but Clown is wearing the hood now. So should we expect to see those marks go up on Clown? No, she's only wearing it for a couple of seconds. John comes in and gets pissed off with Clown and everyone else for goofing around. So right off the bat, we know this is a big no-no to wear the hood. And, we've kind of known there's a little bit something special behind that hood. We don't know what exactly it is. Meanwhile, Xavier presses Riri on what she's doing to get all this money. So obviously Riri has acquired some funds in the past couple episodes, joining the heist team, and now all of a sudden she, came home and probably told Xavier, I need all this money for this grant, I got kicked out of college, I lost my scholarship, blah, 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 blah. Now all of a sudden she's buying all this high tech, so he's probably like, what you really up to? And I'm not sure, he must get the context later on throughout the season, but Xavier's involvement was sort of weird with, like, the main superhero part of the story, like, not, he was obviously involved in like personal life stuff, but I don't know how much he actually knew about like the crew with Stewart and them, and I don't know. But Xavier is raising some red flags right away. Meanwhile, there's somebody else who's raising some red flags for Riri. It's Joe. So Joe shows up at Riri's door and blackmails her into helping him make the new technology plans that he'd worked on before, or else he will reveal to Riri's mom how they really know each other, them searching Joe, them being Riri and AI Natalie on the black market. And then Natalie also blackmails Riri using her suit override too. She's, if she wants, she can just override the suit and shut it down. So yeah, not a great start to the episode for Riri, where she's being blackmailed by both of these people. I do like Joe though, and his story arc, so it was nice to go back with him. But they first are off to, or they are off to the garage, where this is the place that Natalie and Gary died. Gary being Riri's mother, and Riri, as we see throughout a couple of these episodes, does have panic attacks. So she suffers a panic attack here while trying to, I don't know. I think she's picking up parts or something. Natalie brought her back here, and it doesn't go well. Obviously, I think that would be the case for a lot of people. If you show up to the place where your father and best friend died, you'd be a little bit, not in the right headspace. So that's something that we'll have to watch moving forward for Riri, is these panic attacks. Meanwhile, the news drops that Stewart has been found dead, and the police are now at Riri's door and questioning the mother. When Riri walks back in, she's like, "What are you guys looking for?" They're like, "Stewart's dead, and you were the last person to call him." So that's, a potential frame job, which I'm not sure if we ever actually find out what did happen to Stewart, but, unfortunate Eric Andre's time in the MCU has passed already, but, we live for the memories of him being here. Nonetheless, he's dead, and Riri, this was handled very poorly for a police suspicion investigation, where they like go to her door and like, "You're the last person." They just reveal it automatically. They ask like one or two questions. Like, this was a very piss poor police investigation, unless they had other suspects that they were looking at and just kind of wanted to dismiss Riri. But that feels like maybe we reveal that halfway through the interview or something, trying to catch her in a lie type thing. Sit down, not just outside the apartment. I don't know. Felt very shallow from the police in this opinion, or in this in this little scene here. So John wants to call off the heist. He's got a bad vibe on it, but Parker doesn't want to. Parker is kind of just that persistent personality where whatever he wants goes, and he's going to make sure that no matter what happens, his way is the right way. And, maybe that little hood's corrupting his brain a little bit to not want to listen to his brother and his other friends, but this heist is going through no matter what. So back at Joe's place, we find out he put his dad's resume in a baggie, which I've never seen that done before. So either shows, some level of care of being like, "Oh, I'm going to do something nice and what I think is interesting and put it in a baggie and make it like cool." But we learned that it's, not really well thought upon, because nobody else wanted the remains, because his dad is Obadiah Stane from Iron Man 1. So I think this is a sick callback to the first Iron Man movie, having his son be here with Riri. I'm sure that pissed a lot of people off who are racist, but whatever. I liked it. So this is actually Ezekiel Stane. So I'll intermittently call him Joe, Ezekiel Stane, whoever, throughout the rest of this episode, or throughout this podcast episode. But yeah, this was a super interesting reveal. I was not expecting this at all. I'm not into the comic books and stuff, so I don't know if this is comic accurate or whatever. I'm off TikTok. I'm off Marvel TikTok. I'm off Twitter for the next 8 months. So I don't see this stuff. So this was a good reveal to me. Adds another interesting layer to the story. Meanwhile, though, Joe does let her do the upgrades to the biomesh skin if she promises it doesn't get back to him. So she needs this biomesh skin in order to pass a detector in the sort of garden place they're going to be heading for this heist. And then his only thing is, if you don't have this come back to me somehow, I'm all good with it, which you know what that means eventually down the line. But the heist has begun, and Riri, while this heist is going, is trying to get a piece of Parker's hood to investigate the material, see what it's all about, because he's acting strange. Obviously gives him some sort of superpowers. So she's like trying to also double heist the heist by heisting some of his hood. that's mostly the intrigue of this last part of this episode. Well, no, not really, because there's a bunch of action. So the plan goes awry when they start lighting the greenhouses after Riri trips up the sensors trying to get the hood off of Parker. So this is an absurd like garden on an island where they just blow up the place if you like make a move, I guess. So yeah, the greenhouses are on fire. A lot of our crew is in these greenhouses, but most of them are able to escape. And yeah, this was like DEFCON 5, which was crazy to see that for a plant is just to burn them all. And this plant guy's a little bit weird. So we learned through Parker once again talking to the CEO of this gardening island, going right to the CEO, asking for his conditions, and then dipping. We learned the hood can also make Peter Parker, make Parker go invisible, which he does, and then reappears to snap the gardening guy's neck, killing him. So no remorse, nothing from Parker, just absurd work. They were having a conversation. The guy was budging a lot less than we saw the underground tunnel person budge, and she kind of just signed everything over. He's like, ha, this new CEO is like, ha, you ain't getting shit, man. And then Parker kills him. So maybe Parker's not the best individual, as we're kind of led to believe throughout the series. Nonetheless, John was on the watchtower with Riri, and she pulled a fake operation where Natalie, the AI, was in the Iron Man suit, and Riri was down on the ground doing this investigative extra work to look for Parker's hood and get a piece of it. So when John sees Riri with a piece of the hood, they get into a confrontation, and then she's able to lock John out of the greenhouse, and he dies due to the COT. What am I saying? The carbon dioxide infiltration. So RIP to John. John is dead just halfway through this series. Obviously, it's going to have big effects, as John is Parker's brother. So we see Parker asking a higher power why they let this happen, as he sees an image of John dying again, and that's where we end off episode 3. So pretty strong episode. I like this episode of the gardening stuff on the island. Favorite from this episode, once again, is going to Riri. I thought she was kind of dumb this episode, but I'm always rooting for her at this point, so I don't know. Least favorite is going to John. Turned on Riri hella fast and died for the plot. Sorry, John, someone's got to be the least favorite. So that's where we'll wrap up episode 3. Episode 4 is titled Bad Magic. So we picked this episode up right where we left off. Parker is pretty disappointed about John's death. They are brothers, so that's pretty understandable. Probably needs a grieving period not to get back into the fray of things right away, but we'll see. And for some reason, he senses some sus around Riri. Now, where does this come from? Is it the hood knows, and there's certain other powers that maybe out here looking at Riri, but seems pretty, weird that he would know that. Granted, the hood is everything. Moving on, though, Joe gets pulled by the police at his house. He doesn't get pulled over. He gets pulled out of his house by the police due to Riri's incident last episode. So remember the biomesh skin that Joe said, just make sure this does not end up anywhere or that we will have problems because I'll be in jail. She left it on the gardening floor, and once they do an investigation there, they find that, bring it right back to Joe/Ezekiel Stain's place, and he gets super terrible press over it. I don't think the press was a big fan of Obadiah Stane. Nonetheless, his son now doing the same stuff a couple years later. So Joe is headed to jail seemingly for a while over this stuff. And while all this is happening, the hood is working on his game, aka Parker, by taking ice baths for over 11 minutes. He puts the timer on the phone, puts the phone next to the tub. We see 11 minutes in the ice tub. Underwater, fully submerged. Crazy work, bro. I don't know how you could possibly do that. I think I get the sense that those little marks coming through his body are hot. Like, those can't be cool or room temperature. Those must be hot marks all over his body. But I guess he needs to do these ice baths to either cool down or he's just like fucking around and just finding out his potential. I don't know. But 11-minute ice baths are fucking insane. So good job, Hood, on that. Meanwhile, Riri makes a visit to Joe in prison. Hey, sorry, I got you ended up here, man. Looking at the whole season on a scale of grandeur, Riri is like not a great person. Is that fucked up to say? I'm sorry, but like, she screws up with Joe, she screws up with Parker, she kills John, like, does the stuff at the end, It's not the most morally correct character. Anyways, Joe obviously is not happy because Riri got her ended in jail. He says she's selfish, which I agree with. She lies. She manipulates. She'll do anything to better herself over others. I think so, but I don't think she does that intentionally yet. We haven't seen that intentionality of it. So Joe is not happy with her and tells her to basically get the fuck out of the prison, and she obliges. So after this, Riri has another intense conversation, this time with Hood. He is, a little bit suspect, as we know from the beginning of the episode, but this makes her super paranoid now, where she's like, he's coming after me, and she adds cameras everywhere outside of her house because she's worried about her own mother, and she's worried about Xavier, so she starts handing out these watches to do a protective bubble if someone were to shoot a shot or do anything. So super cool tech. She's definitely got that Tony Stark vibe of just making these like weird tech items. But the paranoia is a bit much considering, he doesn't really. Well, their conversation wasn't the best conversation. I'll say that. But yeah, she goes overboard and secures the whole facility, secures everyone. So while she gives Xavier the watch, Xavier has some very nice things to say to her, giving her confidence in herself again and brings her to tears. So obviously these two have been through a lot together, with Xavier's sister being Natalie being Riri's best friend. They seemingly, I think they wanted to push this as a love interest and then just didn't, where you have like the mom saying, you guys should kiss, blah, blah, blah. Or Natalie saying that. We didn't need it that much, so I'm glad they didn't really go that route. But it was nice to see Xavier bring Riri back to herself again. She's kind of finds herself in the dumps a lot during these episodes, so that was good by Xavier. And now, once Riri's mom gets this bullet through a TV sound shot that makes her watch go off, she's like, all right, Riri, we got to quit fucking around. You're going way too overboard. Let me take you to the store. So I guess there's just a magic store in the middle of Chicago where they go to the cashier and then they instantly go through the ground and visit another realm. Like, these people are just working at at like a candy store. Okay. And they investigate the piece of the cape. They need to figure out what's going on with it. So this woman named Zelma, is that her name? The younger person? Yeah, Zelma. So Zelma and her mother are helping out Riri and her mother. And so the investigation on the cape, it's dark. The hood, it's from one of the darkest dimensions, and the cloak is influencing Parker. So we obviously know the cloak/hood is influencing Parker. Darkest dimension doesn't sound great, but makes sense considering Parker like becomes an asshole when he's wearing it. Riri, after this encounter, is beefing with her mom and takes off in the suit because her mom's like, you got to be safe, you got to quit this BS, and she's like, you know what, screw you, mom, and takes the suit and goes. Parker is here at the prison now to talk to Stain, moving on to a different scene. And he offers him sort of the same deal he offers the CEOs, like, you can come with me or you're just going to be dead and rotting and hate your life. So, of course, the decision is easy for Joe to either get out or to stay in jail. We'll get to that in a second, though. So, meanwhile, while this is happening, Riri's actually at Joe's hideout trying to find a way to harm the hood. Using all these different methods, writing stuff on a whiteboard, trying to figure out, what can possibly damage this hood and what can stop the magic. And during this, she has another panic attack. Meanwhile, back in the prison, of course, Stain decides he wants to get out, and Parker's crew breaks him out of jail and is like, who the hell are you guys, after he hasn't even met any of them. And they also have all of his things. So, this is going to be a good crew for Ezekiel Stain to join because they're all tech-based. He's tech-based. Like, this is actually a pretty good fit. Granted, they're, super criminals, but we don't need to talk about that part of it. The suit brings Xavier to Riri, and then he meets AI Natalie. So we saw Riri kind of having that panic attack. She's off in like a side parking lot / street of Chicago, breaking down. The suit pulls up to Xavier, brings him to Riri, and then this is Xavier's first encounter with AI Natalie. He does not like this AI Natalie and throws the watch back at her feet, thinking, she's gone too overboard with tech. He's more of a realist type person, which I could definitely see that being his vibe. He doesn't like this fake idea of a version of Natalie. He'd rather just, kind of wallow in the sadness of it and not have this AI person, which, I understand that. So he's done with her at the moment as well. Parker, meanwhile, is doing some operation on Ezekiel Stain, and it looks like he's going to get some sort of superpowers, which obviously, every character who has a main role in the MCU has to have some sort of superpowers. We'll find out what those are in a bit, but he's going to offer a hit for Riri's head. He wants Riri dead at the end of episode 4, and that's where we leave off episode 4. So my favorite from this episode, I'm giving to AI Natalie. She was vibing and trying to do the right thing. I don't know, I just felt like this was a pretty bad Riri episode, so I gave it to Natalie. Least favorite's going to Parker, just going mad spite mode, kind of going off his whims. He's letting the hood corrupt him. So that's where we leave off episode 4. Episode 5 is titled Karma's a Glitch. So as we know, we met this sorcerer woman who works in this shop named Zelma. She's around Riri's age, so I'm not sure if, maybe she's a kid or a teenager. It seems like she's a grown woman. Nonetheless, she's investigating pieces of the cape, and we might have an old friend involved. It's Dormammu from Doctor Strange 1. Dormammu, I've come to bargain. This mythical being in the ether out there tortured Doctor Strange, or got tortured by Doctor Strange essentially, because Doctor Strange wouldn't let him go out of this one scenario over and over again. We don't need to rehash the events of Doctor Strange, but looks like Dormammu could be involved here, which is an interesting callback to that movie. Moving forward, Slug and the gang are coming after Riri as well, due to Parker's influence, aka the Hood's influence. And so Slug has taken the suit from Riri, and now the sisters confront her where she is in I think it was a White Castle. She's eating dinner with Zelma. And, Riri's not a suit merchant. She's able to hold her own against the sisters, and then gets them with the watch, locking them in the little bubble there. And so she subdues these fucking crazy sisters who are just able to beat the shit out of anybody they want. So good job on Riri on that aspect. And then Clown comes in, and she's able to get Clown with a tube of some sort. And then Natalie meets her at the perfect time with the suit, allowing her to take out the truck Slug is driving. Now this scene where she punches the truck was the most action scene of the whole series. Essentially, we don't see a lot of scenes of Riri in the suit fighting. Maybe there'll be a season 2 of the show, thinking about it more, but who knows. But Slug is taken out by Riri and the suit. So there's one last foe she has to face. It's Joe. He's back with electrical powers. We saw him getting operated on at the end of last episode by Parker and the gang. And Joe makes easy work of Riri. He's kind of like Electro almost, where he's just got these electric powers. He rips apart Riri's suit, and then at the end, Parker/Hood wanted Riri dead, but Joe decides, you know what, I'm going to spare her. Due to, their past connection, they were friends, so very nice move of Joe to spare her, but he's going to have to go back and tell Hood that she's dead, and that he, didn't do the task that was set out in front of him, but he tells Riri to get lost. Obviously, Riri's not going to get lost. She wants to subdue the Hood. So, interesting choice from Joe/Ezekiel Stain there. Once Riri gets back home, she's defeated. She's down. She's very down in her luck. I don't know what to do. Blah, blah, blah. Pretty emotional. And Riri's mom is like, you got to fight. You got to get out there and do your thing, girl. You're the best. And she also gets passion from envisioning an old memory with her dad. We don't see a lot of her and her dad because her dad has passed on. But, yeah, this was a cool hype scene for Riri to get back on track. And now we go back with Joe, and we see him go back to Parker. Parker doesn't totally believe that Joe did kill Riri. Joe turns down the full-time offer to join the crew, which, yeah, they were looking for a Riri replacement after they killed Stewart. I wouldn't join that thing either. I mean, you're 2 people in a row are gone. I wouldn't want to join that crew, especially if you're Joe and you got other things you're interested in, and now you have this crazy powers. But I respect the decision from Joe. And meanwhile, there's infighting with that crew. So Clown accuses Parker of killing Stewart. So I guess we don't really know we don't ever really find out what happened fully to Stewart. But Clown accuses Parker of killing him. And then Parker crashes out and starts choking out Slug. He tells all of them to get out because they're all kind of complaining dude, you're taking this too far. It's Slug, Clown, and the 2 sisters. And he's like, all right, you guys are done then. You're fired. And these marks that we've seen been going all over his back now are on the side of his face, so they're very evident for the viewer to see even more now. So maybe this is a sign that the Hood's taking a little bit more than it should be. But yeah, so Parker's gang is no more. It's just Parker, a crew of 1. Meanwhile, Xavier is back in Riri's life. He comes back and they reconcile a little bit. Parker is, not Parker. Xavier's not happy with the Natalie AI, but he's come to terms with it, and maybe there's something we can do here in the future, and maybe he'll warm up to it. But he's realizes he was a little bit overreactionary. He's got to chill out. She didn't mean for that to happen, so they're going to be able to reconcile pretty easily there. Meanwhile, Zeke, aka Joe, tries to use his electric powers on the neighbor once the dog shits in the yard and he steps in it, which is a funny plot line going on throughout this season. But Parker is in the car and has the remote control to Joe's powers and can control all of the movements of his body, which at this point was like a little bit ridiculous, where from like here on out, Joe just follows around Parker because he has to and just has to do whatever Parker says. So I didn't like that part of it, but whatever. So basically, he can just control Joe as a vehicle to do whatever he wants. Wrapping up, Parker is now here with his dad, who has also become a CEO. So this was kind of the grand mission, was to eventually take over his dad's business. His dad, I guess, kicked him out of the house when he was 12, and he wants the company. So his dad's like, okay, like, take it. You're just being like super petty right now, and you're not seeing the full vision. But Parker, we've seen him have this interaction with the same interaction with like 3 or so CEOs at this point. It's unclear what he actually wants. Like, he just wants power and money, I guess. Go for it, brother. Anyways, ending the episode off, Riri got a new dope suit. They infuse it with magic as well, because they need to fight magic with magic. Makes sense, I guess. But Natalie is gone in the new suit. She was an AI for the old suit. This suit is not going to contain Natalie. And we find out the reactor cannot handle both her and the magic, so you're going to have to pick one, either Natalie or the magic, as we end off episode 5. So my favorite from episode 5 was Riri. I thought her fight scenes were cool, and then her new suit is dope as well. Least favorite is going to Hood. Just wants it all, never is happy, and is very acting irrational throughout this episode in the series. Episode 6, in the last episode in Ironheart Season 1, is titled The Past is the Past. So, speaking of the past, we open this episode out with Parker and John. They do a robbery, as seems to be their pastime to do together. And Parker has to trust a man to let him get away. So, he's in the situation, he's in the heat of things with John. They get separated, he's got to go his own way, and he's getting pursued by a bunch of police officers. So, he has to trust this other guy who's coming in to save the day for him. And he goes into the door, and it's a restaurant, and they're at dinner where they're having this pizza. Very interesting talk between the two, where we find out who this person is in a bit. But yeah, this person's very, I don't want to say confrontational, but like out front about what they want out of this situation. And he asks Parker, what do you want out of this situation? And Parker says he wants to be rich, and this person says they'll give him all the tools, which he did. Parker did get rich, but whatever. And then he leaves behind the hood, and Parker picks it up, and this is the first time he gets the hood, so we learn the context behind the hood and who this person is who gave Parker the hood, because you're wondering, like, who would possibly give Parker this hood? And now we know who it is. Meanwhile, Joe is still under captivity in the present day of Parker. Joe is trying to make a little bit of rebellion. Parker's like, and makes him stab himself with a fork. Cringe, but, we move. Poor Joe, man. Poor Ezekiel. Moving on, Riri tries to get Natalie back unsuccessfully. As we mentioned before, it can't handle the reactor and can't handle Natalie at the same time. So she is not able to have the Natalie AI in the moment, but she's going to try and figure it out later. So Riri finally makes her grand plan, and we usually get, in the last episode of these Marvel series, the big fight between the big good and the big bad. So in that case, it's Riri versus Parker. But before Riri gets to Parker, she has to get through Joe first. And there's like a weird plan here where if she knees Joe in the groin, then they can do a hard reset and he can go back to being regular Joe, where there's like or like 2 seconds where they can do it again, which everything in the show just can happen needs to happen in 2 seconds, I guess. So she knees him in the groin, and then it's back to regular old Joe / Ezekiel Stain. So that's cool. So Joe's out of the picture. We finally get what we want: Riri versus Parker, although this fight is very short-lived. He tells Riri she's a criminal like him, and he gets the upper hand after going vampire mode, where he just like, and like, I don't know, I don't have sharp teeth, but like the sharp teeth, and it like looks like he's about to bite her or some shit. But he gets the upper hand easily, where Riri is just, Riri's combat in the suit is like pretty poor throughout this whole season. Like, she doesn't have a crowning moment besides the slug trunk truck punch, I guess. Um, but while Parker has the upper hand, Riri activates emergency protocol, which prompts an explosion. Obviously, she's kind of safe in the suit from the explosion. So yeah, she also uses a hologram of herself. So we saw her obviously had the Natalie hologram. She has a hologram of herself, so she tricks him using that. Takes the hood from Parker, and we see Parker without the hood. He's a different man. He's not, the same guy. And yeah, I mean, Parker's down bad. That's pretty much all there is to say about it. So moving forward, Riri goes downstairs, and who's there? But it's the person from the beginning of the episode, the person who gave Parker the hood. She's like, who made this hood? Is it Dormammu? And he starts geeking like, Dormammu's an idiot. I'm the man. And we finally find out who this villain is. It's the chosen one from the TikToks of 2020. Every Marvel conspiracy, every Marvel Twitter post, oh, it's going to be this person. It's going to be who? Mephisto is finally here in 2025. 2025 brought us Mephisto. I'm hyped to see what he's about, just because there's so much like lore and back hype around him, where people have been talking about this guy being in WandaVision. He was going to be in Miss Marvel. I don't know. I can't remember it's Ant-Man. I don't know. He was going to be in everything, and now he's here in Ironheart, a show they barely promoted, which is funny. So Mephisto wants Riri to agree to do the magic as well and take on the hood. And he's like, what are your dreams? What do you want to do? She's like, there's nothing really I want to do. But, we pan to her, Natalie, memories, and obviously she wants Natalie back. So what will Riri do to end out this season? And, I feel like doing this overall review, it kind of steered me back to the fact that maybe Riri's not the best person at this point in time. She heavily considers Mephisto's offer, thinking back to the memories with Natalie, and then she gets Natalie back with the magic, and she starts getting the marks on her arm. So she did it. She took the hood. She took the magic. Riri, in my opinion, but who am I to judge? Super unfortunate. It happened. Didn't love the ending of the show. I thought Riri could be a good person, but she's going down the dark path of magic. So we'll have to see what that future holds with the suit and the magic. I don't know if is Ironheart supposed to be like a villain? Maybe an anti-hero. I don't know, but I didn't love that ending for Riri, man. But regardless, we move, so that's where we end off the main story. But wait, as always, there's a fucking post-credit scene on a TV show, which thank you, Disney Plus, for having these skip credit scene where we can just get right through this bullshit and get to the fucking scene that you want us to see, which is another pretty relevant one where, of course, if you were a decently sized character in a miniseries, you're going to reappear in the Marvel Cinematic Universe because Parker enters Zelma's shop in hopes of someone with a lot of magic experience, so he's going to probably try and get some magic back, and we'll probably see him in like Doctor Strange 3 or some shit. I don't know, but okay, great. Parker's still here. I didn't really care for Parker's character throughout the season, but it is what it is. So that being said, that's Ironheart Season 1, my favorite of Episode 6. I'm giving it Joe. Provided good comic relief and deserves to be favorite of at least one episode, so I gave it to Joe. Least favorite's going to Riri. Come on, this whole season, you've been going down a dark path, and then you take the magic and you do it. I thought maybe this season was leading to her not taking it, but I get they want to continue with Mephisto, probably continue with Ironheart, so that's really about Episode 6. So honestly, this season was like pretty solid. I wasn't expecting a lot going in. Obviously it got review bombed by racists, but I would give this probably like a 7 out of 10 or 8, or like not an 8, but like a 7 out of 10 series. It wasn't a waste of time like some other Marvel's Cinematic Universe stuff has been. Honestly, ever since Kevin Feige did the reset of trying to focus on stuff, and I know this was probably produced and edited before that, but like Daredevil Born Again was gas. This was gas. Thunderbolts was solid. Captain America seems like they kind of just kicked that one down the road, but I'm excited for Fantastic Four. We'll be covering a lot of MCU stuff on this channel. Marvel Zombies, I guess, is something I may cover in the future. It's coming out this fall. What else? Spider-Man? No, I don't think Spider-Man's coming out, but it's going to be an exciting summer for movies. It's July. Superman's out. I got to go watch it. I got to watch Fantastic Four. Maybe F1. We'll see what we're going to do here. It's a slow period in the Dubcast, but you guys can expect more videos. Announcement about TV shows, which no one's probably going to watch this video, but I've decided to stop doing these videos for shows that haven't come out in the past year, maybe even like 6 months. It just is a lot to record them, edit them, and then doesn't get a lot of views. So I won't be doing TV show reviews for old shows unless I get a guest who's really like passionate about the show, and we can kind of lead off on that. But yeah, started watching True Detective, like, I'm not podcasting about True Detective by myself. It came out fucking 10 years ago. So, announcement for my true loyal viewers who watch every video, there'll be slightly less dubcast. We're cleaning it up a little bit. I don't know if 4 podcasts a week is like, I think that's a little too much. So with the show stuff, yes, we'll still be covering Survivor Weekly. I'm hoping to pull in guests on that, but besides that, don't expect these random shows. Like, I'm gonna watch Mad Men. I'm gonna watch Better Call Saul. You won't hear my thoughts on them unless we do like a shoot the shit. But yeah, it's a quick announcement on the pod, but I'm sure I'll say this a bunch of times. So yeah, that'll wrap up Ironheart. What are your guys' thoughts on Ironheart season 1? Do you want to see a season 2 of Ironheart, or do you want Ironheart to join the MCU and movies and stuff? I think it'd be fun to see her in like one of the upcoming Avengers movies. In my opinion, I did enjoy the Ironheart character. So let me know down below. As always, any interaction is positive interaction, so make sure to leave a like, leave a dislike, leave a comment, subscribe. Check me out on Spotify, leave a 5-star rating. So that'll do it. And as always, be easy, y'all.